YouTube, welcome back to another video with Rams fan YT. I'm sorry the screen just went black there. I'm not entirely too sure what happened. But we're back with the history of your club. Today we're going down the West Country. And next to the River Severn, there is a very big bustling city going by the name of Bristol. And the history of Bristol football clubs are very large. I'm going to go with Bristol City today. In the future, I'll go with Bristol Rovers eventually. I'm hoping they probably can stay up, although Bristol City fans are probably hoping they go down. So we're going to look at Bristol City though, and this club was founded in 1894 as Bristol Southend, and they changed their name to Bristol City on adopting professionalism 3 years later, when they were admitted into the Southern League. They finished runners-up in the three of the first 4 seasons, and in 1900 the club amalgamated with local Southern League rivals Bedminster FC, who had been founded as Southville in 1887. City joined the Football League in 1901, and when they became only the third club south of Birmingham, following in the footsteps of Woolwich, Arsenal and Luton Town, to perform in the competition. Their first game in the Football League was on the 7th of September 1901, Bloomfield Road, when Blackpool were beaten 2-0. Winning the Second Division Championship with a record number of points, when they became the first club in the Football League history to win 30 league games in the season out of the 38 played, as well as equaling Manchester United's achievement of a previous season in winning 14 consecutive games, a record which stood until 2018 and was also equalled though by Preston North End 1950-51 season. They were nicknamed the Bristol Babe at the time, and they finished as runners-up in their inaugural First Division campaign of 1906-07 season, as the only Southern club to finish in the top 2 prior to World War I. In 1909, they went through to their only FA Cup final, though they were somewhat fortunate that a last-gasp spot kick saved them from defeat in the semi-final versus Derby County at Stamford Bridge, to be fair. Still regretting it now, what could have been. And in the final at the Crystal Palace, which is now the National Sports Centre, Bristol lost to Manchester United 1-0. After a 5-season stay in the top flight, despite winning 1-0 at Newcastle at the start of the 1910-11 campaign, failure to beat Everton in the season's finale brought City's first ever taste of relegation, and it was to be 65 years before top flight status would be regained. Bristol City would then go on to stay in Division 2 until 3 years after the First World War had ended. And in that time, they reached the semi-finals of the 1919-1920 FA Cup before being beaten 2-1 by Huddersfield Town, and finished third in the Second Division in the 1920-21 season. However, in the next season, they were relegated to the Third Division South. The 1920s were a rocky time as City bounced between the Second Division and the Southern section of the Third Division. The season after City were relegated, they achieved promotion back to the Second Division, before being relegated back to the Southern section of the Third Division again the following season. After successive high finishes in the league, they were promoted again in 1926-27. However, by the 1930s, they had slumped into the lower division and stayed that way until over 10 years after the Second World War. During this stay in the Third Division South, they won the Welsh Cup though in 1934, where they beat Tranmere Rovers in the final. Bit weird, both English teams. However, in the same year, they also suffered their biggest ever league defeat, a 9-0 loss to Coventry City. The 1930 season was the most successful season for City since they were relegated to the Third Division. They came second in the league and reached the final of the Third Division South Cup before losing 6-2 to Reading on aggregate. So, not the greatest on that. They then came 8th in the First Division, the final full season before the war, in which the grandstand of Ashton Gate was destroyed by a German air raid. In 1946-47 season, City recorded a record league win by beating Aldershot 9-0, although that isn't much impressive considering how bad Aldershot are. Although despite Don Clark scoring 36 goals in the league, City actually failed to get promotion that season. Harry Dolman became a chairman in 1949, a post he would hold for over 30 years. An engineer who had brought out the firm he worked for, he designed the first set of floodlights which were installed at Ashton Gate in the early 1950s. The 1950s were a better time for City with a 5-year stay in the second division, a league they returned to for a further spell in 1965. In 1997, Alan Dix was appointed manager, and things gradually began to improve with promotion to the first division in 1976, ending a 65-year exile from the top flight. Between 1975 and 1981, City were regular participants in the Anglo-Scottish Cup, winning the trophy actually in 1977-78 season, where they beat Hibernian in the semi-finals and won 3-2 on aggregate in the final against St Mirren. And this was actually managed at the time by a relatively new manager by the name of Alex Ferguson. St Mirren had their revenge though 2 seasons later with a 5-1 aggregate victory over the City to become the only Scottish team to win the trophy. City's second stint in the top flight was less successful than the club's first, with their 13th position in 1979 being their highest finish. Stars of this era included Peter Cormack, Jeff Merrick, Tom Ritchie, Clive Whitehead, Jerry Gow, something like that, Trevor Tainton and Jimmy Mann. In 1980, the City team went back to the second division in the first of 3 relegations. Their debt mounted and their financial losses increased, with 2 successive relegations following. Thus, in 1982, they fell into the 4th division and were declared bankrupt. A new club was formed. The BCFC 1982 Limited acquired the club's players' contracts, and the highly paid senior players Julian Marshall, Chris Garland, Jimmy Mann, Peter Aitken, Jeff Merrick, David Rogers, Jerry Sweeney, and Trevor Tainton, who had become known as the Ashton Gate 8, each accepted termination of his contract for the half the amount due. The club's previous owners had failed to pay its debts to many local businesses, and resulting ill will towards the club made it difficult for the new owners to obtain credit. City spent 2 seasons in the 4th division before winning promotion under Terry Cooper in 1984. They consolidated themselves in the 3rd division during the latter part of the 1980s, and in 1990, Cooper's successor Joe Jordan achieved promotion as 3rd division runners-up to local rivals Bristol Rovers. There was a tragedy for the club, however, in that promotion campaign. In March 1990, 2 months before the club's sealed promotion, striker Dean Horrocks was killed in a car crash, barely 2 weeks after joining the club as well, and having played only 3 league games with them. And it's a very sad story that I'm sure his family miss him every day. Jordan moved to Heart of Midlothian in September 1990, and his successor Jimmy Lumsden remained in charge for 18 months before making way for Dennis Smith. Smith's first signing was the 20-year-old Arsenal striker Andy Cole, who was an instant hit with fans. He was sold to Newcastle United in February 1993 and later played for Manchester United, where he collected 5 Premier League titles, 2 FA Cups and the European Cup. Meanwhile, City remained in the new Division 1. This was no longer the second division after the creation of the Premier League in 1992. And Smith moved to Oxford United in November 1993. His successor was Russell Osman. In January 1994, Osman led City to a shock 1-0 victory over Liverpool at Anfield in a 3rd round replay in the FA Cup. A result that would cause the Liverpool manager at the time, Graham Souness, to resign. Osman was sacked within a year of taking charge, though. Joe Jordan was brought back to Ashton Gate in September 1994, but was unable to prevent relegation to Division 2. Jordan remained at the helm for 2 seasons after City's relegation, but left in March 1997 after failing to get them back into Division 1. Former Bristol Rovers manager John Ward took over and achieved promotion in 1998 as Division 2 runners-up. But City struggled back in Division 1 and Ward stepped down in October 1998 to be succeeded by Benny Lannartson, their first non-British manager. I think, where was he from? He was from Sweden. City were relegated in bottom place, and Lannartson was dismissed in favour of Gillingham's Tony Pulis. Yes, he's already come on the scene, who lasted 6 months before leaving to take over Portsmouth. During his time at Ashton Gate, he was manager of perhaps the worst City side, since the one that had completed a hat-trick of successive relegations almost 20 years earlier. Coach Tony Forthrop took over until the end of the season, when Danny Wilson was appointed. Wilson was arguably the most prominent manager to City's side since Dennis Smith, as he guided Barnsley to promotion to the Premier League in 1997 and Sheffield Wednesday to a 12th place finish in 1999. The early 2000s were a frustrating time for Bristol City. They were regular Division 2 playoff contenders during Wilson's spell as manager, and they just missed out on the playoffs in 2002, where they finished 7th. The following year, Wilson almost took them to automatic promotion, where they finished 3rd and won at the EFL Trophy in Cardiff in 2003. The taste of the playoffs was bitter, though, losing to rivals Cardiff City 1-0 on aggregate in the semi-final. In his final year of 2004, they finished in 3rd place again, and this time they reached the playoff final but lost to Brighton and Hove Albion. He was sacked within days and replaced by veteran player Brian Tinian. City just failed to make the playoffs in Tinian's first season as manager, finishing 7th, and he stepped down in September 2005 after a poor start to the season. City's form had slumped despite the addition of high-profile players, including Marcus Stewart and Michael Bridges. Yeovil Town manager Gary Johnson was recruited as his successor. Johnson arrived in September 2005, making the move from Yeovil Town, with whom he had gained 2 promotions. Initial results were poor, but Johnson was soon able to recover the season and finish in a comfortable 9th place. In the 2006-07 season, Bristol City finally achieved the elusive promotion that had evaded them in their 8 years in the 3rd tier. Promotion to the Championship was confirmed on the final day of the season with a 3-1 win over relegated Rotherham United, securing the runners-up place in the division and resulting in automatic promotion and joyous scenes of celebration. After a good start in the Championship, City established themselves as real contenders, sitting in 3rd place at Christmas. By the start of March, City were top of the Championship, making an improbable 2nd successive promotion a possibility. However, a poor run ended City's chances of automatic promotion place, but qualified for the playoffs with a 4th place finish, which was their highest finish since 1980. City overcame Crystal Palace 4-2 on aggregate to progress to the playoff final at Wembley, where they were beaten 1-0 by Hull City. After a poor start to the first half of the 2008-09 season, City recovered after Christmas, peaking at 4th place in late February. After a lot of draws, the season eventually petered out, and City finished the season in 10th place. The 2009-10 season saw some good results in the autumn, but heavy defeats by local rivals Cardiff City 6-0 and Doncaster Rovers 5-2. In early 2010, it led to much dissatisfaction amongst the fans, and Johnson left the club on the 18th of March 2010, when assistant manager Keith Millen took charge as caretaker manager and led a series of good results, resulting in the 2nd successive 10th place finish. Steve Coppell became manager in 2010, but resigned after just 2 matches, which has got to be one of the shortest spells of all time. Long-time assistant manager Keith Millen was announced as Coppell's successor, and City laboured to a 15th place finish in 2011 season. After a poor start to the 2011-12 season, Millen left the club in October 2011. Derek McInnes was appointed next. After a promising start, City fell into the relegation zone, eventually surviving by the skin of their teeth in 20th place, which was their worst since their promotion in 2007. This steady decline would continue, and after a poor start to the 2012-13 season, McInnes was sacked in January 2013, with City at bottom of the Championship. He was replaced by Sean O'Driscoll, the club's 5th head coach in 3 years. But City were relegated to League One after 6 seasons. O'Driscoll left with the team 22nd in League One. Steve Cotterill joined the club, which ushered in the start of a revival. When he joined, the club were bottom of League One, but Cotterill guided the club to safety and finished the season 12th. Had the season started when Steve Cotterill joined the club, Bristol City would have finished 5th. This just showed the scale of the turnaround of when he came in. Bristol City were promoted back to the Championship for the 2015-16 season after the 14-15 Football League One title, their first league title since 1955. In their last home game against Walsall, they finished the season in style, winning 8-2. Bristol City finished the season with 99 points. This was the most points in a single season in the club's history, and only 5 losses as well. In the same season, they also won the 2015 Johnson's Paint Trophy, or EFL Trophy, after a win over Walsall, which finished and ended 2-0, and their 3rd league trophy, a record held by the club for having the most wins in that competition. Despite huge success in the previous season, the club struggled on their return to the second tier. Steve Cotterill was relieved of his duties in January 2016 after a poor run of form, which had seen Bristol City slip to 22nd in the Championship table. Lee Johnson, former player and son of manager Gary Johnson, was appointed as Bristol City's new head coach on the 6th of February 2016. Bristol City eventually finished in 18th place. Bristol City started the 2016-17 season well, and after 11 games they were 5th in the league table. And City also appeared in the last 16 of the League Cup for the first time since the 1988-89 season. However, a sharp downturn in fortunes followed over winter, and City were only just able to accumulate enough points to ensure survival at the end of the season. Lee Johnson remained at the helm for the following season, again making a positive early start, and at the midpoint of the season, after 24 league games, they sat 2nd in the Championship, whilst almost knocking out Premier League opposition at Watford, Stoke City, Crystal Palace and Manchester United to reach the semi-finals of the League Cup. The poor run of form followed, and City finished the season in 11th place. Bristol City ended the 2018-19 season in 8th, after experiencing a rollercoaster of a season following a 7-win streak. The battle for the last playoff spot came down to the final day, before, the mighty Derby County managed to win their final game and clinch it. Haha, suckers. I know, a really loud noise. From March to June, the 2019-20 season was suspended due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Despite again challenging for the playoffs during the season, Johnson was sacked on the 4th of July 2020 after a run of just 1 win in 10 league matches. His longtime assistant, Dean Holden, was appointed as his replacement on the 10th of August 2020. After suffering 6 straight defeats in all competitions, Holden was dismissed on my birthday this year, of 16th of February 2021, after just 6 months in charge. He was replaced by former Watford boss Nigel Pearson. So, they're still not doing much better, are they, for the moment, Bristol City? So they seem to be a club at the moment which is always challenging for the playoffs and then tapering off towards the end of the season, ending mid-table. So thank you very much for watching. Coming up, and please subscribe if you're new around here. Coming up, we've got the best footballers from Asia coming on Sunday, and then there's going to be a week break until the best football players in Europe. There's no history of a club next week. I will be in Cardiff, and it would have been about Cardiff City, ironically. But you can go on holiday from the 12th of April, and so that's where I will be. If you want, you can come and see me, get an autograph. I don't know, I'm not that famous, but see you.